morning, students. Here we start with our gross anatomy of anterior abdominal wall. Now, in the gross anatomy of the anterior abdominal wall, in the last segment we have discussed about the umbilicus and its importance, and also we have discussed about the various regions of abdomen. Now, the anterior abdominal wall, when we try and dissect, it consists of from superficial to deep 8 layers, and these 8 layers are: number 1, first layer is the skin. Number 2, second layer is superficial fascia. Second layer will be the superficial fascia. Then we come to third layer, the external oblique muscle and its aponeurosis. Third layer. Then we come to the fourth layer. We are going from superficial to deep. So we are having the internal oblique muscle and its aponeurosis. Then we are having the fifth layer, the transversus abdominis muscle and its aponeurosis. So external oblique, internal oblique, and transversus abdominis muscle and its aponeurosis, individual aponeurosis. So here I will write individual and its aponeurosis in this way. Then number 6, we are having just deep to transversus abdominis, fascia transversalis, fascia transversalis. And then we are having number 7, we will have the extra peritoneal connective tissue. And then we are having number 8, parietal peritoneum, parietal peritoneum. You must remember all the 8 layers of the anterior abdominal wall from superficial to deep. Now, out of these 8 layers in sequence from superficial to deep, layer number 7 is very important, because all the abdominal organs, whatever abdominal viscera are there, they are lying within this layer in extraperitoneal connective tissue. Now, when we consider the anterior abdominal wall, as of today we are going to discuss the skin and superficial fascia. So in the skin and superficial fascia, there are a lot of 1-mark question answers, or there are a lot of MCQs which can be formed, which are asked. So therefore, now in order to understand the skin and superficial fascia, if we come on this side, if you draw the costal margin of one side, here we are drawing the costal margin of other side. In this way we are drawing. Then we show somewhere over here the xiphisternum, and at this level we are going to show the iliac crest. This is how we draw the anterior abdominal wall. Now here in the costal margin, supposing if we just have this 7, 8, 9 and 10, 7, 8, 9 and 10. These are the costal margins. So therefore, here we give the number 7, 8, 9, 10 in this way. So 7, 8, 9 and 10 costal cartilages. In the skin, umbilicus we have already discussed. So therefore, we start with the first terminology, linea alba. A median vertical line we can see in the skin. Before the dissection, we can see a median vertical groove, median vertical line extending from xiphisternum till the level of almost the umbilicus. And from the umbilicus, minor amount of that line can be seen, which will extend till symphysis pubis. Now that median vertical groove or median vertical line, it will overlie a median vertical groove. It will overlie a median vertical groove. So therefore, this midline, which shows that vertical groove, is known as linea alba. So many times it can be asked in 1-mark question answer, what is linea alba? So therefore here you need to write linea alba. Now second terminology. On either side of linea alba, there will be 2 curved lateral lines with slight lateral convexities. Now these 2 curved lateral lines, they will extend from superiorly where my finger is there, ninth costal cartilage. Superiorly, where my finger is there on either side, ninth costal cartilage. So it will extend from the ninth costal cartilage in this way till the level of pubic tubercle inferiorly. So inferiorly, it will be at the level of pubic tubercle. So this is how the two curved lines with slight lateral convexity will be present on either side of linea alba, extending from superiorly costal cartilage, ninth costal cartilage, inferiorly till pubic tubercle, and these two lines are called linea semilunaris. So therefore, this is the second terminology, and here linea semilunaris. And what do they represent? This linea semilunaris, they will be representing, or rather they will be present on lateral side of one muscle which will come in the median plane, and that muscle will be rectus abdominis muscle. So linea semilunaris is present on the lateral border of rectus abdominis muscle. This is terminology number 2. Remember, we are discussing the skin of anterior abdominal wall. Now terminology number 3. In the skin of anterior abdominal wall, if we observe very closely, there will be cleavage lines of Langer. And these cleavage lines of Langer, they are nothing but the collagenous fibers. And their disposition of these collagenous fibers, which are represented as cleavage lines of Langer in the trunk, that is in the abdomen, it will be horizontal. So therefore, there will be these horizontal cleavage lines of Langer, which are disposed horizontally in the trunk region. And the same cleavage lines of Langer are found vertically, longitudinally disposed in case of upper and lower extremities. So that is terminology number 3, cleavage lines of Langer. And here we can mention cleavage lines of Langer, that are nothing but the collagenous fibers that are distributed within the skin. Now terminology number 4. In the skin of the lower abdominal wall, mostly in Paris females, there will be lot of irregularly branched, in this way, irregularly branched white fibrous, the white lines. And these white lines, they represent linea gravidarum. So here we can mention them as linea gravidarum. This is terminology number 4. What are linea gravidarum? Linea gravidarum are irregular white branching streaks or lines which are found in the skin of anterior abdominal wall, lower part, in case of Paris females. And they are produced because of degenerative fibrosis of subcutaneous fat which is underlying the skin. Once again, they are found because of degenerative fibrosis of subcutaneous fat which is present just below the skin during enormous amount of stretching of uterus during pregnancy. So that is why this linea gravidarum are produced in females, in Paris females, and in the lower abdominal wall because of the degeneration of the or degenerative fibrosis of subcutaneous fat during their stretching, enormous amount of stretching of uterus during their pregnancy period. So these are about the terminologies of the skin of anterior abdominal wall. Now we come to the second layer. First layer is skin, second layer is, as we have written over here, superficial fascia. In the superficial fascia, for example, if we want to understand this superficial fascia over here, let me create some space over here. The entire superficial fascia of the skin is divided into basically 2 layers. It will be divided into basically 2 layers. The outermost layer is subcutaneous and fatty layer, and that layer will be known as fascia of Camper. And the deep layer, the innermost layer of the superficial fascia, the innermost layer will be known as the deep membranous layer. That is the deep layer of the superficial fascia, which is called the deep membranous layer. That is called fascia of Scarpa. So the superficial subcutaneous fat layer, the outermost layer of superficial fascia is called fascia of Camper, and its deep layer, the superficial fascia has the deep layer also, which is deep membranous layer. It is called fascia of Scarpa. Fascia of Camper, fascia of Scarpa. So therefore, fascia of Camper and fascia of Scarpa. Here if I write fascia of Camper, and then if I mention over here, I will just rub this. If I mention over here fascia of Scarpa, and now these two fascia, remember, if you draw a horizontal line connecting the two iliac crest, horizontal line connecting the two iliac crest, the area above that horizontal line connecting iliac crest, that area of abdomen, that area of anterior abdominal wall above the horizontal line connecting the iliac crest or above the level of iliac crest will have only one layer, of superficial fascia. But below that level, anterior abdominal wall will have two layers of superficial fascia. So therefore these two layers, they are condensed into one layer above the horizontal line of iliac crests. And below that horizontal line connecting the two iliac crests, below that, the superficial fascia is divided into fascia of Camper and fascia of Scarpa. So therefore, this is superficial fascia here, and it is dividing into fascia of Camper and fascia of Scarpa. Now, as I already told you, fascia of Camper is subcutaneous fatty layer and the fascia of Scarpa is the deep membranous layer. These two wordings, these two sentences are very important. Now, again one mark question answer or MCQ. What are the structures that are found in between fascia of Camper and fascia of Scarpa? There are the structures that are found in between the fascia of Camper and fascia of Scarpa are, note them down, they will be superficial epigastric vessels, then there will be the superficial external pudendal vessels, and then there will be superficial circumflex iliac vessels. And the fourth structure will be the superficial group of inguinal lymph nodes. So please note down, these are the structures which are found between these two layers, fascia of Camper and fascia of Scarpa. Superficial epigastric vessels, superficial external pudendal vessels, superficial circumflex iliac vessels, and superficial inguinal group of lymph nodes. One mark question answer. Now we go to the fascia of Camper. If the fascia of Camper is taken, then the fascia of Camper, if I draw the sagittal section, simply we show that this is anterior abdominal wall over here, and this is the penile portion. Here this is the scrotum, and over here this will continue as the perineum. So this is the scrotum, this is the penile portion, this will be the perineum, and of course this is the anterior abdominal wall. Now, fascia of Camper is a fatty layer, so it is present in such a way that it will be distributed or it will be continuous on each and every region, superior, laterally, inferior. It will be continuous everywhere with the localized subcutaneous fat. So it is continuous as subcutaneous fat in different regions of the body, and it itself is a collection of subcutaneous fat. So therefore, this layer, as it is continuous just below the skin, this white line what we have drawn is nothing but the skin. It is a sagittal section of anterior abdominal wall, the penile portion, scrotum, and the perineum. Now, this line which I am drawing, this is the fascia of Camper. Since it is continuous everywhere surrounding with the subcutaneous fat, it will, in the inferior region, it will be replaced by, where it will be replaced? It will be replaced here in the scrotum by the involuntary muscle of the scrotum, which is called the dartos muscle. So this fatty layer will be replaced by the dartos muscle, that is involuntary muscle of the scrotum. That is about fascia of Kemper. Now fascia of Scarpa. In the fascia of Scarpa, this is very important, the entire fascia of Scarpa, and the fascia of Scarpa is a deep membranous layer. And remember, it is made up of elastic fibrous tissue. This is very important. The fascia of Scarpa is made up of elastic fibrous membrane or elastic fibrous tissue, elastic fibrous membrane. This is very important. So that it may allow the stretching of anterior abdominal wall. Now where it is attached, this fascia of Scarpa, that is composed of the elastic fibrous membrane, which is also called the deep membranous layer of superficial fascia, will be attached to the following parts. Now we trace that entire fascia. It will be attached in such a way that, supposing blue color we are tracing, it will be attached to linea alba in this way. Linea alba, supposing you consider this line as the median line, linea alba. So it will be attached, number one. Here also you can mention this attachment of fascia, where it is attached, the fascia of Scarpa, that is linea alba. Then lower down, it will continue lower down, and it will form here in this region, this ligament, it will form, and it will be known as fundiform ligament of the penis. So lower down it will form fundiform ligament of the penis. That is the second structure where it will form. First, it is attached to the central vertical groove in the anterior abdominal wall, linea alba. Second, the fascia of Scarpa will form fundiform ligament of the penis. Then it will continue with, here, it will continue with this dartos muscle. So it will continue with the dartos muscle of the scrotum. This is the third point, and here we will write dartos muscle of the scrotum. Remember, these are the attachments of fascia of Scarpa. Linea alba, then it will be attached as, or it will form fundiform ligament of penis, then it will continue as the dartos muscle of scrotum, and then posteriorly, here it will continue as, here I will put an arrow, it will continue as, and here we will mention Cullis fascia of the perineum. It will be attached to the Cullis fascia of the perineum. Remember, the fascia of the perineum is called Cullis fascia. So here it will be continuous with the Cullis fascia, and here if I draw this way, this is the Cullis fascia. So it is attached with the Cullis fascia of the perineum posteriorly. So therefore, now lower down, in front of the thigh, the same fascia of Scarpa will be attached to the deep fascia of the thigh, which is called fascia lata. But where is it attached? It will be attached to fascia lata. Now supposing here if I draw independently, if I show pubic tubercle of one side, and if I show over here the pubic symphysis, and here the pubic tubercle, and this is the pubis bone of one side, anteriorly I am showing, and there will be attachment of, if I show from above, this is the inguinal ligament which is coming from anterior superior iliac spine and getting attached to the pubic tubercle. So at the level of inguinal ligament, in the front, now this is the front, one portion only I am showing. So in the front, the entire fascia of Scarpa as it is coming from above, here at the level of inguinal ligament, it will be attached with the deep fascia which is coming from the thigh, the deep fascia of the thigh, which is called fascia lata. And what is that line of attachment where fascia of Scarpa of the abdomen is attached with the fascia lata? That line of attachment is called Holden's line, and therefore now this Holden's line will extend from the pubic tubercle laterally for 8 centimeter. It is a horizontal line which will be attached from pubic tubercle and extending laterally transversely for 8 centimeter. And therefore this particular structure is known as Holden's line. And what is the importance of Holden's line? Many times it is asked in Viva MCQ 1. Holden's line is a horizontal transverse line 8 cm drawn laterally from pubic tubercle. It is a presence of attachment of fascia of scarpa with that of the fascia lata. The fascia of scarpa which is coming from above, from the abdomen, and the fascia lata, that is the deep fascia of the thigh, and from here the fascia of scarpa. So therefore, this is at the level of almost inguinal ligament. This is the inguinal ligament. So Holden's line will serve as a line where fascia of scarpa of the abdomen is attached with the fascia lata of the thigh. This is the importance, this is the presence of Holden's line. So therefore, here we have discussed all the attachments of the fascia of scarpa at different levels. Linea alba, fundiform ligament of penis, dartos muscle of the scrotum, Colles fascia of the perineum, and Holden's line where it will be attached with the fascia lata of the thigh. Now we come to the applied anatomy of this skin as well as the superficial fascia. Now in the applied anatomy, we will discuss, for example, in the applied, here I will write down the applied anatomy. First we shall discuss over here the superficial inguinal space. The superficial inguinal space, sometimes it is also asked in one more question answer. What is superficial inguinal space? This superficial inguinal space is a space which is present between the fascia of scarpa and external oblique muscle of abdominis. So the space which is present between the fascia of scarpa and the external oblique muscle of abdomen is called the superficial inguinal space. So therefore, if you consider here where my hand is there, this space which is present just below the fascia of scarpa and in between the fascia of scarpa, and if I draw over here, this is the external oblique aponeurosis muscle, then this space will be known as the superficial inguinal space, and it is present in the anterior abdominal wall. Why this space is important? Because the superficial inguinal space which is present between fascia of scarpa and the external oblique muscle in the anterior abdominal wall, sometimes urine will get collected here during extravasation of urine. In cases of extravasation of the urine, when the urine is collected in superficial perineal pouch, it may extend in this space. This is the only point which you need to understand, which you need to write in applied anatomy, superficial inguinal space, and in this space there will be extravasation of the urine which will be collected in this space between the fascia of scarpa and the external oblique muscle in the anterior abdominal wall. When there is extravasation of urine in superficial perineal pouch, when urine gets collected in superficial perineal pouch, then automatically it will be extending, the urine may extend into the superficial inguinal space in this direction, the arrow which I have drawn. Now, second point of applied anatomy importance will be the attachment of fascia of scarpa with that of the fascia of Colles of the perineum, this portion. Now the fascia of scarpa and the Colles fascia are attached in such a way, this attachment is significant. Why it is significant? Because the scarpa's fascia is attached to the Colles fascia of perineum in such a way that during rupture of urethra, during accidental injury or rupture of urethra, the urine will not be extravasated, will not be collected behind this line. And what comes behind this line of attachment of fascia of scarpa and Colles fascia? That is ischiorectal fossa. So urine is prevented from getting collected in ischiorectal fossa, as well as the urine is prevented from getting collected in the thigh. So therefore, during extravasation of the urine, in cases of rupture of urethra, the urine will not be going backwards, it will not be collected backwards in ischiorectal fossa or downwards in the thigh, because of the attachment of fascia of scarpa with that of the Colles fascia. Please note down this point. This is the second point of applied anatomy. So therefore, This is the second point. Now we consider the third point of the deep fascia, that is the superficial fascia, not deep fascia but superficial fascia. In the third point itself we are going to write the deep fascia is absent in the abdomen. The deep fascia will be absent in the abdomen. That is what we have written. Why deep fascia is absent in the abdomen? Because abdomen needs space for stretching. And deep fascia, what does it contain? Basically, deep fascia is made up of the collagenous fibrous tissue. And this collagenous fibrous tissue can never stretch. So, because if deep fascia would have been present in the abdomen, it would have prevented stretching of the abdomen. And that is why deep fascia is absent from the anterior abdominal wall. Instead, it is replaced by the two layers of the superficial fascia. That is the third point of applied anatomy. Remember, many times it is asked whether deep fascia is present or absent in the anterior abdominal wall. Deep fascia is absent in anterior abdominal wall. It is because of this reason because deep fascia contains the collagenous fibrous tissue which is not stretchable. But here it is replaced by the deep membranous layer, that is fascia of Scarpa, which contains elastic fibrous membrane. So these are the 3 points of applied anatomy in case of the skin as well as the superficial fascia of anterior abdominal wall. So we have finished the skin and superficial fascia of anterior abdominal wall. Thank you very much.